There is only one thing that anyone who has ever played a Bethesda game will agree on. Skyrim is still by far the best farming sim on the market. Farm Simulator? It's overrated. Even my beloved Stardew Valley is dwarfed by the genre titan that is the 5th installment of the Elder Scrolls series. You tend to your farm, making sure that your crops are watered and the animals are fed before returning into your home for a nice meal and a well-earned rest.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck are you doing in my house?
But when those pesky giants come knocking on your door, there's a few ways in which you can defend yourself. You could choose to be a magic-wielding Chad, a two-handed alpha, or even a one-handed beta. However, there is one other way to beat the game that doesn't often get talked about. As Gandhi once said, stealth archery is cringe as fuck. Try just using shouts. Can I beat Skyrim with only shouts? I'll be extremely surprised if you don't know Skyrim by now, as Todd Howard has released this bad boy on every console that he knows to exist.
Ooh, a fresh pie? Save me a slice. That's good. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's... Alright, that's good. Okay. Alright, alright. Okay, that's good. That's good! It's enough slices!
But for those of you who don't know, the whole premise is that this big winged boy named Alduin has come to end the world, or something along those lines, and you're the only one who can stop him. After a wild night of fishing at the aquarium, the gang and I landed in a spot of trouble with the boys in blue. As we pulled into Helgen, a feeling of unease set in. It could have been the headsman getting ready to cleave my skull from my shoulders, but I couldn't help but think something else was out of place.
Every second you're not running, I'm only getting closer.
I designed a character perfect for shouting and gave him a fun little name after a strapping young lad. One of the prisoners lost a little more than his temper. He really should have just listened to the prayer though, because Alduin came to save the day. I quickly learned that I could tank the unprotected wrath of an elder dragon, so from this point on my fear was at an all-time low. Real gamers go with Hadvar, so that's what I did. After he was finished with the rope play, I found some armor and equipped the healing spell. The spell does 0 damage and therefore does not affect the run. If you disagree with me, feel free to take it up with Ethan Powell in the comments. I cheered for Hadvar as he made orphans out of some poor Stormcloak children.
At the end of the day, it's not that funny, is it?
And not just the men, but the women. And the
cave spiders.
too.
Finally, I used my favourite mechanic of stealth to sneak past the sleeping bear and left Helgen. As I stepped out into Skyrim, I realised I was a reformed man and vowed never to kill or steal ever again. After some light shopping, it was time to cheese the quest system by heading straight to Bleak Falls Barrow to take a rock off a dead man. Running past all the bandits was pretty simple. Hell, these two were nice enough to let me unlock and rifle through their chest before attacking me. And this is where we hit the first challenge. Currently I have no way to deal damage as I haven't unlocked any shouts. I have to free Arvel in order to move on, however there's a giant spider blocking my path. Cobwebs aren't alive, so I took my frustration out on them. Arvel died under suspicious circumstances and all was right with the world. My memory was impeccable as always, and I solved the puzzle without having to look at the golden claw. The first word of power for Unrelenting Force was very nicely graffitied on the wall, but unfortunately I haven't munched on a dragon's soul yet, so I can't use it to defeat the Overlord. Now, I know what you're thinking. Doey, how can you get the Dragon Stone if you can't kill the Draugr? Well, if you were to think that, this is why this is the dynamic we have going on.
Stop it, Jimmy!
And if you weren't, this is why you're my favourite. The Overlord willingly ran into a couple of swinging axes and my kills are still 0. I bet you feel pretty silly right now, don't you? After swindling our way into Whiterun and giving the Dragon Stone to Balgrof's resident Redditor, the Jarl gave me a reward which I would keep and cherish for the rest of my playthrough. My favourite part of the game happened.
Not now. Not now. Not now. Not now.
And I was shipped out like a 14-year-old boy in the 1940s. Was that too soon? Deciding to employ the element of surprise, I decided it best to hide in the tower and cheer for the guards as they all either burned to death or were consumed by the dragon. I naturally took all the credit for the kill and unlocked my first shout. The Jarl congratulated me on my bravery and gave me the Axe of Whiterun, A great honour and a weapon that I would cherish until the end of my playthrough. Now, my original plan for this run was to employ some creative uses of game mechanics, combined with 5 amulets of Talos and the ability to turn into a werewolf to essentially give myself unlimited shouts without having to recharge. However, the companions don't let you join without dealing physical damage, so I was stuck having to do this run. Legitimately. The reason why this is bad is because when we unlock better shouts later on, they'll take around 80 seconds to recharge. That's 80 seconds where I need to stay alive, something I am not well known for. Before we continue with the main quest, I think it's about time for us to acquire a shout that will make me slightly more useful than those Bibles you find in hotels. I decided to go with the Frost shout, as you can't get all the words for the Fire shout without completing some companions missions. The first one was on a wall guarded by a dragon, just south of Windhelm. While I couldn't kill the dragon, I made friends with the local giants and thanked them after absorbing its soul. The second word was located in a dungeon near Solitude and was slightly harder to get to. It required some more happy little accidents and a couple of funny ragdolls, but I eventually got to the wall. The third, final and scariest shout to get was located near Labyrinthian, on a dragon-guarded wall. I decided not to stick around to fight the dragon or the hundreds of frost trolls in the area because they were hell-bent on destroying my confidence more than my year 3 teacher who wouldn't give me my pen license. However, much like a recently divorced middle-aged man, we must move on while only holding a small amount of resentment. You know who you are. You know. This part of the game was just like the tale of the man who climbed a mountain in order to meet 4 old men and learn how to scream really well in the ancient language of the dragon. I couldn't think of a good segue for us meeting the Greybeards, so just cut me a little bit of slack. Also, surely I can't be the only person that knows there's an easy way to the Greybeards and yet always tries to jump my way up to them for about an hour before giving up, and just doing it the way our Lord and Saviour intended. The Greybeards wanted a taste of my voice, whatever that means, and one of them taught me the second word of power for unrelenting force from the dragon's native tongue. They taught me how to run away, which I feel I should have learnt earlier so as to avoid my first tonguing. The Greybeards sent me off to do their dirty work by retrieving the horn of Jurgen Blowjobber. I ran past every enemy in the dungeon with relative ease, only to find a note that abused me only like Rainbow Six lobbies could. I got the horn first, lol, actually Dogwater. Come find me in Riverwood, pussy. Kind regards, Belle. I arrived in Riverwood and wasted no time demanding the horn from a member of an ancient group who killed dragons called the Blades. In return, Belle made me promise to let her watch me clap some dragons' cheeks. I gave the horn back to the Greybeards and they taught me the final word of power for unrelenting force, which gave me at least half an hour of solid amusement before I met back up with Belle. I had a quick chat with Alduin before hiding behind a tree and occasionally hurling abuse at one of his friends until it died. I smiled as this dragon's ancestors watched me condense its eons of existence as well as its literal resurrection into a singular word.
Good. For my turn, I raped the Decane family. Again.
Now thoroughly convinced I was indeed the Dragonborn, Belle told me I had to break into the Thalmor embassy to see if they were behind the dragon attacks. Yeah, that doesn't feel charged at all, bro. I dropped off everything I wanted to take with me to the party and got into my finest attire. The party was absolutely not vibing, so I slipped into the back rooms and killed my way to their special gym. I found some books that gave proof the Thalmor were not behind the dragon attacks, as well as a book that told me an old man called Esbern was living in the Riften sewers. This part was excruciating. It took so long to kill every enemy as I had to wait in the rafters for my shouts to recharge, and then I ran around blindly until I eventually triggered the event to bring the guard holding the key to leave. I returned to Belle, who told me Esbern was a member of the Blades, and immediately sent me to find him in the sewers. Honestly, over half of this run was spent travelling from one location to another. Without doing side quests, you quickly realise how laborious all games are. I ran past every enemy in the Ratway and must have surprised the shit out of the Thieves Guild as some random balding orc named Ethan Powell ran through their super secret base of operations, only to return a few minutes later with a chef hat, an awful lot of Thalmor blood on his hands, and escorting an old man. Reunions were made and we wasted no time in heading to the Blade's super secret base of operations. I jiggled some rocks until a bridge fell because there was absolutely zero chance I was going to even attempt to solve the puzzle correctly. Esbern pretended like he could read the nonsense scribbled on this wall, but more importantly I got to fulfill my fantasy of being both a chef and a weeb by equipping the Blade's armor set. I returned to my 4 surrogate grandfathers and they told me to check out what was on top of the mountain. When I reached the top, I was absolutely shocked to find not one, but 2 complete box sets of the hit TV show The Crown. Less interestingly, there was a dragon who told me there was a way to beat Alduin with a forgotten shout that could only be learned from an Elder Scroll. I, being the seasoned Bethesda player that I am, skipped straight past the middleman and learned the location from a dude who would also never touch grass in his life. I toughed my way through this Dwemer ruin, only dying a few times and ignoring pretty much every enemy. An Elder Scroll descended from the heavens, if the heavens were underground in a dwarf cave, and we were off again to do some light reading with Parthenax. I learned the Dragon Wren shout just in time for Alduin to make his guest appearance. I forced Alduin down to the ground and shouted at him like a parent disciplining their child. The fight was quite boring and involved a lot of waiting, but I eventually won. Esbern sent me the super simple task of capturing a dragon. How do you even go back? Conveniently, Whiterun was built for just a recreational activity. Inconveniently, Jarl Borgruff was concerned about the possibility of being railed by both General Tullius and Ulfric Stormcloak at the same time, and made me promise to stop the boys fighting while we used his home to catch an extremely dangerous creature. I convinced General Tullius to attend a peace treaty in High Hrothgar by telling him there were hot single MILFs in his area. And I convinced Ulfric Stormcloak to come by telling him there was hot single General Tullius in the area. I managed to piss off absolutely everybody at the peace treaty, however they agreed to a temporary ceasefire. Cease stabbing? Esbern was a little late to the leader of the Greybeards being a dragon party, but he taught me how to summon a dragon, which was an awfully nice and helpful plot point. The Jarl and I chilled on a cool balcony as we yelled dragon-specific slurs until one got offended enough to drop by. Turns out I was right earlier, as this dragon was as easy to catch as stealing candy from an old arthritic man. Without hands. Or legs. Or eyes. Or a nose. Or any sense of hearing. Along with my new best pal, we set off to end this run once and for all by travelling to Skuldolphin. Getting through the dungeon part was pretty easy. I solved a couple of puzzles and ran away from an overlord while waiting for my shout to recharge, took the claw off his body, and was back out into the world. I equipped Whirlwind Sprint because there was no way in hell I was waiting around for 10 minutes to kill this dragon priest. I managed to sprint into the portal before it could be closed, and I arrived in Sovngarde. In Sovngarde, I challenged Sun in order to cross the bridge, and died a couple of times. However, he unfortunately lost his footing and fell over the edge of the waterfall. My win was 100% legitimate and fair, and so I was invited into the Hall of Valor with open arms. I gathered up my group of Ancient Scroll characters and we got ready to head out clubbing. Alduin arrived, and given this is the final fight, you'd expect it to be really hard, and you'd be absolutely 100% wrong. This battle was just so incredibly boring. I had to wait 80 seconds each time I wanted to deal any damage, and the damage I did deal was extremely incremental. Eventually we did beat him to within a slither of health, and with one last... he exploded. And with that, I beat Skyrim using only shouts. If you liked this video, please leave a like and tell me what challenge you'd like to see in the comments down below.